Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be doing the rear brakes on this N70 Hilux. We're going to replace the wheel cylinders, the drums and the shoes, and replace the fluid. So let's get into it. First thing I'm going to do is just take the cap off the reservoir because we're going to drain the fluid out. Lift the car up on the hoist and move over to the back end. Okay, now the car's off the ground, we'll just rip the rear wheel off. Okay, just make sure your handbrake is off. On the drum here, there's a couple of jacking bolts. You just need a couple M8 bolts with long threads on them. Just slowly wind them in. That should come off. Okay guys, so the reason I was changing these is because this rear wheel cylinder was leaking. I see all the brake fluid has been leaking in the backing plate here. So just on the back side of the brakes on the backing plate, this is the bleed nipple for the wheel cylinder. I'm just going to undo that and take it out just so the brake fluid starts to drain out. Okay guys, so I've just cracked the bleed nipples off the other wheels and get all the fluid draining out. Now we'll start removing these shoes. So you can just see those pins that go through the backing plate, and they just have these little retainers. Just grab a pair of pliers and sort of squeeze it together and pull it off. That pin just comes out of the backing plate. There's one on each side here. There's also a couple springs and a park brake cable. So you just grab your pliers and it'll slide out like that. Cable sits in a little retainer. Spring right down the bottom here. Just pulls out. And there's another spring here on your brake adjustment. Now that that stuff's undone, just get the shoes and just pull them out of the bottom there and just lift them out of the top. Just you can pull it out in one piece like that. Okay, so we're on the back side of the backing plate here again. This is the back of your wheel cylinder. So this is just the feed line, the brake line going to it. Just crack that off. That's just a 10mm. Sometimes when they're really tight, you'll need to use a flare nut spinner, which looks like that. They get a bit more of a grip on them. These ones aren't too bad. So just undo that. Brake pipe's loose, and then you got two little 8mm bolts that hold wheel cylinder in. Just take them out. Once you get them out, that whole wheel cylinder will just come out. Okay, now that we've removed that wheel cylinder, you can you see on this backing plate, brake fluid's actually started chewing the paint away. I'm just going to get some brake clean all that off. And I'll probably just put a bit more paint back on there, but just to clean all that old fluid out of there. Any paint that's peeling off, I'll remove that. But just hit it with a bit more paint just to stop it from rusting. Okay, I've just cleaned this up and you can see how much paint that brake fluid's actually eaten away. So I'll just give that a bit of a touch up before I start putting it back together. Okay, so we got the old brakes and the new brakes here. Just take the spring and this adjuster out and swap them over. Just grab that spring out. This adjuster will come out. Just give them a bit of a just lay them out the same way so you don't get confused. little adjuster goes on this side for that, but we can put that on later. Okay, so this is the new wheel cylinder. Looks like that. The spring in there. It just goes on there like that. And 2 little 8mm bolts go on the other side. So we're just looking at the backing plate now. Just feed this wheel cylinder in. Grab an 8mm spinner. Do them up pretty firm. Just take this bleeder out. You can't get it the wrong way, but make sure the bleeder's at the top. And then just fit your brake line to the bottom thread. Do that one up nice and firm. Okay, hope you can hear me alright because it's raining at the moment. So what we're going to do now is just install the brake shoes. And now we've got it to this stage, so sort of just feed them down through there. Put them onto your wheel cylinder in the bottom. Goes in this bit here. Make sure they go on nice and evenly, and the bottoms as well. Now we'll just put our retaining pins back in. So put your little bolt through the retaining plate, and it goes through that hole there. And then I find you just get your pair of pliers on it like that, and squeeze it so it shuts. And then just slide it down onto there, and then it'll lock in. There's one of them on each side. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is get this park brake cable into the lever there. There's a spring on it, so you just got to pull that spring back. Just get a pair of vice grips on there. A pair of pliers. Just pull that spring back. And then feed the cable back down in there. Like that. Make sure it goes all the way down there, and that thing will hold the spring in as well. Okay, now that that's on, there's a couple more springs and stuff to put on. It's this little, sort of like the adjustment lever that locks your adjusting plate in. Just goes onto that roll pin there. There's a spring that goes on that. Hooks in the bottom and then on there. And there's another spring that goes on the bottom. And it actually tucks under this little lever here. Make sure you get it underneath that. Okay, make sure the brakes are adjusted all the way in, this bar here. It'll help you get the drum on easier, and then we can adjust them up when the drums are on. Just slide that drum on, make sure it turns nice and easily. Make sure your handbrake is off. I'm just going to put a couple wheel nuts on. Just to make sure that drum's all the way home when we go to adjust the brakes. Okay, so now the wheel cylinders are back on and that. I've still got all the bleeders out. And as you can see, this brake fluid is empty, so it's all drained out. What I'm going to do is top this up and let it run down, keep it topped up, and as it starts leaking out, the front brake calipers will come out first. As it starts leaking out, I'll start putting the bleeders back in, and that'll get all our fluid down through the lines to our calipers and wheel cylinders, and then it'll make it easier when we want to bleed the brakes. Just top that up until it's completely full. And I'll keep an eye on these brakes, and when they start leaking out, I'll put the bleed screws back in. Okay, we're just going to adjust the rear brakes now. So you just pull this little rubber grommet out. You get to it, now just a couple little screwdrivers, or just use this little cold chisel. But so this hub wheel drum moves freely now. I want to tighten it up so it doesn't move, and then we're going to back it off a little bit. So just in here is that adjuster wheel. You hear it just going up. It's getting a bit tighter. Okay, that drum's tight, I can't turn it now. So now we just have to go the opposite way, but there's that locking plate in there. So you just got to, you'll feel it sort of like spring loaded. You push against it. And then you just have to wind that wheel the opposite way to back it off. It is a little bit tricky, but still a little bit firm. I'll just go off a little bit more. Just go off one more because it's alright, now that drum's nice and free again. We'll leave it like that. Okay, now it's time to bleed the brakes. Just pull this little cap off here. I've got someone helping me, so I'm just going to tell them to push the pedal down and hold it down, and then I'm going to let this off. And always start at the brake that's further away from the master cylinder, which is the driver's side rear on this, and then we'll work our way to the closest one. Pump the pedal. We're just getting a bit of fluid through there now. Pump it again. Okay, I'll just get them to pump it 3 times and then hold the pedal down firm. and that will force the fluid out. Those few little air bubbles that come out. So we'll do it again. Pump it again. A tiny bit of air that time, so we'll do it one more time. Pump it again. There's another air bubble there, so we'll do it again. So that time there we had a good stream of oil coming out with no air bubbles. So that one's done. We're going to do the other three now. But that might say you might do it 1 time, 3 times, 10 times. Just keep doing it until you get the air out of the system. Forget to put the cap back on. Okay, so bleeding that rear brake there, it has dropped the fluid down. So after every wheel, you do just check your fluid, because you don't want to run it dry, otherwise you'll have to start the whole process again. Let's top that up and we'll go do the rest of the wheels. Okay, so that's how you replace the rear wheel cylinders, the brake drums and the shoes on this N70 Hilux. We also replaced the brake fluid, flushed out the whole system with that. The only other thing we're going to do is just take it outside and give it a good wash down with water around all the wheels where we've maybe spilt some brake fluid, because you've seen what it does to paint, it just strips it off. So I hope you've learnt something today. Please like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you on the next one.